Welcome to DFC on the Green for the Waste Management Phoenix Open. I'm Jason Gilbo. With me is Chris Etherington. Breaking down our DraftKings picks for the week. Coming off a very interesting tournament that ended this morning. If you guys didn't watch.
Yeah, you had Jason Day finishing it off against Alex Noren early this morning. Yeah, it was just a weird tournament that ended in the dark. If you haven't seen it yet, there's a couple of articles on JB Holmes already, but he basically slowed everything down, which really ruined Noren's rhythm. It took over 4 minutes for JB to decide whether he should lay up or not, and the only thing that really got me was that he said that he was trying to win, but in my mind, if you're trying to win, then it should be a no-brainer for you to go for the green. He was in the fairway. He had a perfect lie, so there was just no reason for him to lay up. He was 2 shots away from Jason Day, so he needed to eagle the par 5 just to have a chance of winning, and he laid up. So yeah, he's getting a lot of backlash right now, and unfortunately for Noren, he failed to close it out and beat Jason Day. So yeah, it was just an odd week, especially with Tiger coming back. Yeah, it was just one of those weeks where just close the books and move on.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about Tiger before we started recording, and Tiger. If this is rusty Tiger, then watch out for when he gets really in form here.
Yeah, I think one of the analysts on Golf Channel said it best. I think it was yesterday, and he basically said if everyone played from where Tiger was playing off the tee, Tiger would be easily leading the field by 5 shots. His approaches and his short game was really on form, and he did not shoot an over par round for the tournament. So if that's his worst, and once he tidies up his driver, then yeah, it wouldn't take much for him to start winning it again, for sure. And Masters is right around the corner.
Yeah, definitely. Let's dive into this week. It's always a popular tournament. It's one of the more fun tournaments to watch on TV. Something that I definitely want to get out there and would love to experience. And I think a lot of people kind of share that dream of going in there and sitting on that par 3 and basically drinking beer all day and yelling.
Yeah, this is really the only tournament where if the pro misses the green on 16, then the pro will get booed. It's just one of those traditions that it's been happening like since early 90s, pretty much. So it'll be a fun tournament, and I think you're going to see a lot of birdies, a lot of eagles. I think the winning score will probably be around that 20 under, 19 under mark. It's definitely a lot easier than last week.
Yeah, for sure. Let's jump in. Let's talk about these top guys here. Let's talk kind of briefly about Matsuyama. Just it's his course. Really over the last his 4 starts here, he's won back-to-back T2, T4 in 2015, 2014. We were talking a little bit before the show. We expect him to be popular just because of his course history here. His stats, have been solid of late. He hasn't really excelled in any one area dramatically, but he's been fine. Once again, have no issue with using Matsuyama in any format here.
Yeah, if you want to play him, then just play him. He's not a bad play. Me personally, I'm just going to fade him. I think he'll be the most popular guy at the top, and he'll probably be in the top 3 in ownership. when it comes down to Thursday morning. Yeah, like you said, with his course history, a lot of people will compare that to the other guys at the top, and they're just going to pick him. So I think he'll be the most popular, and I think Spieth, Rahm, and Fowler will probably spread the ownership a little bit around. And then I think Thomas might be your tournament guy because he missed the cut here the last 2 years.
Yeah, and you look at Thomas, I mean, he scores well. He's a guy who does score well, especially at that price tag and all the other names around him. Like, I do expect Thomas to be severely lower owned compared to everyone else. And I like Rahm a lot here, like you said. This is going to be one of those things I was telling you before. Like, I don't mind if you're building 15 and 20 lineups and you want to get a solid core and you want to just kind of flip and flop between guys like Matsuyama, Spieth, and Rahm. Like, I think that's a good way to do it. And you kind of cover all angles.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's going to be very easy to create whatever type of lineup you're going to want to make this week. For me, I think I'm just going to start with Rahm, especially for my cash lineup. He's first, for his stats, he's first for strokes gained off the tee. He's first in strokes gained per 5 scoring. So, and he's 5th in birdies per birdie gain. With that in mind, he's still second in the world. Yeah, he didn't have a good weekend last week, but I'm just going to dust that off and go back to him. Like I said last week, I'm just going to play around basically for the rest of the year. There's really no reason to fade him at this point. He's just on point with all aspects of his game.
And Fowler's kind of another guy where, he's made 7 and 9 cuts here. This is a spot where 3 top 10s, 2 back-to-back here, top 5s. He's always been kind of an interesting guy in a couple of courses where he's closed in and can't kind of get that win. I can see Rahm being a little bit more popular than him. I can see Spieth being a little bit more popular than him, but I kind of also see maybe Fowler gets a little bit love kind of later in the week, which pops up his ownership a bit.
Yeah, he does have that name value as well, next to Rahm and Spieth, but I think with the miscut last week being so popular, that might be the recency bias for some people, and that might keep his ownership down. But overall, he's still going to be, I'm going to say, around 17, 18% in an ownership. He's just a popular name up top that people will just almost auto-click him pretty much and just move on from there. And like I said, with Thomas, he's probably going to be your lowest owned guy at the top. He's going to be your perfect tournament play option. With all the guys having good course history here, Thomas is still hitting the ball solid, so there's really no reason to fade him for tournaments, especially in a $3. So I think for me, it'll be Rob and then maybe Thomas, and then go on from there.
Let me kind of look in this next range here. Look at Marc Leishman and going down about Phil Mickelson. Phil Mickelson's also a guy who very solid course history, hometown up here in Phoenix. Out of these top tier guys, I'm not a huge fan of the upper 9s. I don't mind using them, but I'm not going to be looking to kind of go that way.
Yeah, it's almost interesting that Noren and JB Holmes are almost right next to each other with their pricing. I don't know how popular Noren's going to be. This is going to be his first time playing at this course, and I'm not sure if he's going to like the crowd or not. We'll see. But at 9,200, I think that's a fine price for Noren. He's just playing very well overall. So he's just going to be a good, solid play. For me, I think I just like Leishman. Just the fact that he's basically putting somewhat better than most. He's second strokes gained putting in the field in the last 24 rounds. So for him, he's really not that popular. Not too many people play him. And yeah, I'm just going to go back to him, I think, for this week. He's just going to be another solid play up here, and I think he'll do well.
Yeah, I think he's fine. Webb Simpson's interesting at 8,900. This is a guy obviously last year came in second, a couple top tens over the last few years. He's a guy he's getting it done with the putter for the most part. Everything else is fairly average as far as stats go. Par five scoring of late and par four scoring over his last 4 events have been pretty solid. At 8,900, I think he's a decent option. I think I prefer him kind of over like Finau and Holmes and Noren for me.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I haven't decided whether I should not play Finau or not this week. He kind of bummed me out a little bit last week with missing way too many putts on Sunday. But Simpson, like you said, his stats are really solid. He's actually 26th in the field for birdies or better gain. And like you said, with his course history, he has one of the best course history recently. So at 8,900, it seems a good value on him. He should be where, in my mind, I think he should be where Noren is, or maybe even Berger. I think at 8,900 is just a nice value spot for Simpson.
Yeah, and I think, outside of that, Mickelson's right there. Gary Woodland's obviously interesting. He did miss the cut 2 of the last 3 years. I'm willing to take a GPP flyer on Woodland, though. I don't know if he's quite cash game viable this week.
Yeah, I'm in the same, again, in the same boat as you. Woodland, for stats-wise, he's 9th in the field for strokes gained approach the green, and he's 10th in the field for birdie or better percentage gain. So for tournaments, I think he'll be a fine play. He's just a little streaky sometimes. So maybe not a good cash play. And then for Mickelson, something is a little off with him, but for me at 8,500, I think I'm just going to fade him. This is where he started as a pro, basically, back in like 94, 93. So a lot of people will play Phil. I think he's going to be in that top 5 ownership range. So he's a complete fade for me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect him to go out there and finish top 10, although, he has 6 top 10s here. He's got 9 top 25s. I don't mind him if you're building some last, but obviously you mentioned the ownership's going to be high on him. I kind of prefer moving some other directions in that range because we're going to get to a 7K range here where there just seems to be so many solid plays. We'll kind of start moving down here a little bit. I know you talk about Ryan Moore this week. He's 8,200. Also has a solid course history and he's been playing pretty well.
Yeah, this is going to be my first time playing Moore this year. He's only played 3 times so far this year. He's made the cut all 3 starts, so that's good news. Also, his course history is really solid. So, again, that's another good news. And then when you look at his stats, I mean, he's 10th in the field for both strokes gained approach the green and also for strokes gained around the green. And his par 5 score is not that bad either. At 8,200, you can't really go wrong at that price for Ryan Moore. So I think on paper, it definitely looks a safe play for me. Last year, I know it was him and a few other guys where I would play him thinking it was a good play, but he misses the cut by a few shots. So I'm a little hesitant on Moore, but right for this week, he's definitely in play for me in cash games.
Before we get to like Brendan Steele and Zach Johnson here, What are you doing with Ryan Palmer this week at 7,900? Obviously coming off a strong event here, um, playing pretty well. Like his stats kind of grade out at a decent rate. I don't mind it, but I kind of feel like he could be a little bit popular as well.
Yeah, going back to the recency bias again, I think he will be one of the more popular plays because people saw him almost winning last week, and then they also know that his life is pretty much back in order. We all know about his wife battling cancer, and then he just got his status back because he was on a major medical status. So he cleaned that up already, and then now he's basically playing free golf for the rest of the season with good course history. I think a lot of people will play him, and I think for me, I'm just gonna stay away just because I think a lot of people will be on him, and then if I have to guess his ownership, it'll be at least 15%. If I have to guess.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about Brendan Steele here. We're going to talk about Zach Johnson. I do want to touch on Shane Lowry just real quick. He was obviously a bust this past week. I don't mind going back in GPPs here.
Yeah, with Palmer right there, I think Lowry again is just like last week will be a good pivot option. Not too many people will probably play him probably because of the name and the fact, like I said, he's right next to Ryan Palmer, where I think a lot of people will click his name more so than Lowry. So I like Lowry for tournaments for sure.
Then we look at Brendan Steele. I mean, he's been excellent here. 7 times here he's finished 5 out of the 7 in terms of the top 25, 3 out of 7 in top 10. 7,800 just seems too cheap for some of these guys.
Yeah, it was his price and Zach's price that kind of took me for the loop. I'm surprised they're both 1,000 given their course history. For Steele, he was pretty much my go-to guy last year. He seems that he was making almost every cut, and his price was just at that right mark where you couldn't go wrong for him. This week, again, he's below 8,000. He should be at least $1,000 more, in my opinion. For stats, he's 8th in the field for off the tee. He's 20th for strokes gained birdie at better percentage. And he's actually decent for par 5 scoring as well. He's 23rd in the field for that. So I think in a way, it's a steal for Brendan Steele at 7,800. So he's definitely one of the lock plays in all formats this week, I think.
How long were you waiting to use Steele for Steele?
I used it once last year, and then I think this week I'm going to use it again. So
we're putting a limit on you. You can't use it anymore.
It just has a nice ring to it. I'm sorry.
Zach Johnson, once again, I think this is going to be a guy who's going to be pretty much in most of my lineups, if not all of them here. One, the price is right. Everything kind of matches up for him stats-wise and just course history-wise. It's going to be hard to get away from.
Yeah, again, if you look at Zach's history, he has 3 top 15s basically in the last 3 years. And then if you look at his recent play, I mean, he has, again, 3 top 15s in his last 5 starts. So you can pretty much put your money on it that more than likely he will finish in the top 15, if anything, top 20. He's just firing it on all cylinders this week. For stats, I mean, he's 5th in the field for par 4 scoring, 12th for birdies and better, and he's actually putting fairly well. He's 14th in strokes gained putting. So, just like Steele with his price, I think Zach is just way too cheap at 77, and I'm going to have a hard time to not put him in a lineup. Like, I'm making 20 lineups this week. He might be in all of them for me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat, and I think if you're kind of looking to pivot out of that range, like Kevin Chappell's interesting at 7,700. If you're looking for a low ownership guy, I think in that range. Scott Piercy as well at 7,500. I know JJ Spawn's going to be probably maybe somewhat popular, but I think those are the other three names above 7,500 that I'm looking at.
Yeah, for another guy too, maybe Russell Knox as well at 76. I mean, he's 8th in the field for par 4 scoring. He's 20th for around the green. And then people will probably just look at his course history and say, oh, he missed a cut here last year, so I'm not going to play him. There's Sack just above him. There's, like you said, Piercy, Spawn below him. Then there's another guy, Bubba Watson, below him as well. So I think Knox might be your good pivot option away from these popular names.
Well, let's talk Bubba here real quick. We were talking a little bit about him before the show, and he's a guy who's just hasn't gotten together for quite some time now. As a decent course history here, he's a guy who can hit the long ball, obviously, and that does help here. He can score well. He just hasn't been right, and that's the thing with Watson. Like everything's there, but he hasn't been right for quite some time.
Yeah, for last year, for some reason, there was a rumor out there that he started having like a food diet. He wanted to eat better or something. He lost a lot of weight doing that. And then he was playing with that pink golf ball as well. And some say that was just hurting his spin rate and whatnot. And he was just not hitting the ball very well at all last year. The one thing with it's funny with this course history here, just the fact that I think it was last year that he said he's only at this place just for his sponsors and nothing else. If it wasn't for his sponsors, he would not be playing here at all. And then sure enough, he missed the cut last year. But before last year, it was like a top 15 here, tied for second. So, I mean, for tournaments, if you're doing like 150 lineups, maybe put in like 5 Bubba Watson lineups if you really want to play Bubba. But for me, I'm just going to click Spawn right next to him. He finished 4th here last year. And then if you look at his stats, I mean, he's 2nd in the field for birdies above gain, 2nd in the field for approach the green. So hands down for me, it's going to be Spawn over Watson. And I just have to wait, see what Bubba does.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the same thing for me. Like if I'm building, I'll get 1 or 2 lineups in with him, and that's about it. I just prefer some other guys in that range. Like we've named off, 4 or 5 guys that I'd rather play in the 7s, and even moving down, like Bud Colley's the guy that you talk about, 7,300. He's interesting. Keegan Bradley, Molinari, Snedeker. Like there's other guys that I just kind of rather go to.
Yeah, kind of like Ryan Palmer last week. I think a lot of people will play Keegan just because he played well yesterday, and they will see his name on the leaderboard, and they're just going to play him the next week. That's usually how it goes. For me, I think I'm just going to go down to Ches Reavie maybe at 7,400, and also Bud Colley at 73. For Reavie, his stats are still solid, and he's a cut maker basically. He's 9th in the field for strokes gained par 4 scoring, 18th in the field for strokes gained punting. So at 7,400, you can't go wrong with Reavie. And then for Colley, I mean, all of his stats are pretty much average or just above average entering this week. And then if you just have a look at his course history. He only played twice here. Yeah, he made the cut both times, but nothing to basically be excited about. Basically finished in the middle of the field. So I think for tournaments, I like Bud Cully, and then for cash games, I think Reeve. Even for tournaments, just for course history matters. Just because he missed the cut 3 times in the last 3 years. So I think those 2 guys for me, and then just move on.
What are your thoughts on Molinari and James Hahn there? Like, I can't get the best read on him. We look at Hahn. He doesn't have the greatest course history here. We also look at Molinari. He hasn't played here too often. He's only played here once back in 2015. Molinari is always a guy that I have some interest in, especially when he's priced like this.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to fade this week on Molinari. He just doesn't create a lot of birdies. He's more like a player for last week where par is your friend, and that's pretty much the type of player he is. He won't give you much. He's kind of like Jim Furyk in that sense, back when Jim Furyk was playing well. He'll just make the cut for you, and then he'll be your 5th or 6th guy in your lineup to help you try to win a tournament. So for me, I think Molinari is going to be a fade just for that reason. And then for James Hahn, I mean, if you just look at his course history, it's a decent play. He does like it here. And then his stats are okay, not the greatest, but as a pivot option, I think James Hahn might be a good tournament play just because he's right next to like Andrew Landry, Wes Bryant, Harold Varner III. People will play those guys over James Hahn, I feel. So I think for tournaments only, I think James Hahn is your best bet.
And then looking below 7K, you're looking at Hadley once again here at 6,900.
Yeah, there's really no reason for me to fade Hadley this week. I think this is more a better course for him than last week. Last week, I think, was a little too tough for him to score. But needless to say, he's first in the field for birdies a better gain in the last 24 rounds. I mean, he's 5th in the field for approach to the green. He's 11th for par 5 scoring. So at 6,900, I think Hadley is just a good option for either cash or tournaments. He was very popular last week. I think he'll be around the same ownership, maybe just a bit less, just because he didn't really do much. But other than that, yeah, I think he's a good option for both formats.
Yeah, I do too. I do like Kevin Na as well in that range. Same price, 6,900. He's made 11 cuts here out of 12, 4 top 10s, 7 top 25s. He's done hasn't done much this year. T42 at Career Builder. He missed the cut, the Sony Open, but at 6,900, like if you're trying to get in 2 studs, I don't mind using both those guys.
Yeah, I don't mind Na. He's just one of those guys where you just kind of hope that he makes the cut, and then that's really it. He doesn't really do much, kind of like Francesco in that sense. He really only has like one really good stat next to his name, and that's strokes gained around the green. He's 3rd in the field for that. So again, at 6,900, you're just looking for guys to make the cut, and that's it. They're probably just a tournament play for me for Kevin Na.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's more of a course history play for me, just given that his history here has been very solid. Like you said, making the cuts is something that he has done here 11 out of 12 times. And I mean, probably not a guy who's going to go out here and get a top 15 given his play of late, but I could definitely see him kind of hanging around that 25 mark, 30 mark if he plays well.
Yeah, and that's pretty much his game right there. He doesn't score a lot of birdies, and I think there's going to be a lot of birdies to be made this week. Looking at the weather so far, I think for now, if he does make the cut, which obviously in the past it shows that he likes the course, then yeah, like you said, maybe a top 30, top 35. That's pretty much all you're hoping for Kevin.
Anyone else you want to talk about here?
No, I pretty much got the guys that I like already, and then that's pretty much it for me.
Who are you picking this week?
I haven't decided on the winner yet, but I think if I had to choose at the top, you know what? I think Marc Leishman might get it done this week. He's just a very solid player all around, and I don't think a lot of people will play him. So I'm just going to pick Marc Leishman for the win.
I like that. I'm going to play Webb Simpson here for the win. I'll fade that top tier because it's no fun calling a 3-peat for Matsuyama.
No, and then yeah, something's up with him. So I'm just gonna not play him and hope that he misses the cut, and like 30% of the field will be disappointed. And yeah, that's my hope for this week.
Man, just cutting throats out there.
Yeah, it's what I do sometimes.
That's going to wrap it up with us. You can head on over to fantasycafe.com. You can check out Chris's article for this week. Also, give him a follow on Twitter. He's always tweeting pretty much 24/7, man. You're up and at him early in the morning.
Yeah, especially, well, if stuff happens like yesterday with JB Holmes and then with Tiger coming back, you're going to get a lot of tweets from me for sure.
Yeah. So definitely give him a follow, and we'll see you guys next week.